My fiancée ruined my career since I earned more money than her. So, I left her and found something better. I'm 32, male. 2 years ago, at a friend's graduation party, I met someone who I believed was everything I wanted in a partner. She was ambitious, driven, and had this sharp wit that drew me in immediately. I was 32, established in my career, and ready for something serious. The beginning was like a dream. We clicked instantly, shared similar goals, and had what I thought was a solid foundation. After 18 months of dating, I got down on one knee, convinced I'd found my person. That's when things started to unravel, though I didn't see it at first. Looking back, the red flags were there. She'd make these offhand comments about not liking when men earned more than their partners, saying it made her feel inferior. I brushed it off as just a quirk, maybe even a valid concern given society's expectations. I couldn't have been more wrong. At the time, I was working at a tech company, doing software testing and client support. Nothing flashy, but I was good at it, and there was room to grow. My fiancée worked in marketing at a competing firm, making slightly less than me. I never saw it as a competition. We were both building our careers, or so I thought. Everything changed when I got a promotion and raise at work. Instead of celebrating with me, she frowned and asked if it bothered me that we were drifting in different directions. When I offered to help her advance her own career, she insisted nothing was wrong. But something had shifted. Her manipulation started so gradually that I almost didn't notice it. At first, it was just little comments when I worked late. She'd sigh heavily and say things like, "I guess this is what dating a big shot is like now," or "Don't forget about us little people when you're at the top." If I tried to defend myself, she'd immediately backtrack. "Can't you take a joke? Why are you so sensitive?" But it wasn't just about work hours. She started monitoring my phone, claiming she was just curious about who was texting me. When I'd get messages from female colleagues about work projects, she'd make theatrical shows of being understanding. "Oh, I'm totally fine with Sarah texting you at 9 p.m. about work stuff. I'm not like other girlfriends who get jealous." But then she'd spend the next 3 days making pointed comments about Sarah's LinkedIn profile or asking seemingly innocent questions about how often we had meetings together. She even started showing up at my office unannounced, bringing lunch just because I was thinking of you. But she'd always managed to time these surprise visits for when I was in meetings with female coworkers. Once, when I was giving a presentation with my colleague, she burst into the conference room claiming there was a family emergency. When we got outside, the emergency was that she had a bad feeling and needed to check on me. These incidents always followed the same pattern. She'd do something inappropriate, I'd confront her about it, and she'd either deny it completely or twist it around to make me seem paranoid or ungrateful. "I can't believe you're angry at me for caring about you," she'd say, eyes welling up with tears. "I guess I'm just too invested in this relationship." By the end of these conversations, I'd somehow end up apologizing to her, even though she was the one who had misbehaved. Her interference at my workplace became increasingly bold and disturbing. It started with phone calls. A coworker pulled me aside one day looking concerned. "Hey, we got some weird calls from someone claiming to be from HR," he said. "They were asking really specific questions about your salary, whether you ever argued with female colleagues, if you took long lunches with anyone. The caller had even asked if I seemed trustworthy with confidential information." When another colleague mentioned similar calls, I started documenting everything. The caller had apparently contacted at least 5 different team members, each time with slightly different stories. To accounting, they claimed to be doing a salary audit. To my project team, they were investigating a complaint. To the front desk, they said they were verifying employment for a mortgage application I hadn't even applied for. I knew it was her. The questions were too specific, too aligned with her jealous suspicions. When I confronted her, she put on an Oscar-worthy performance of indignation. "How dare you accuse me of something so pathetic?" she cried. "I can't believe you think I'm that kind of person." She stormed out and then spent the next 3 days telling our friends how paranoid and accusatory I'd become, how my success was changing me. But the calls were just the beginning. She started sending anonymous emails to my supervisors, carefully worded to seem like concerned coworkers raising red flags about my behavior. She'd write things like, "I've noticed some concerning patterns," or "I feel uncomfortable bringing this up directly." Each email would contain just enough truth to seem plausible, but twisted in ways that cast suspicion on innocent interactions. The next blow came when HR called me in about an anonymous complaint. Someone had accused me of violating confidentiality rules. Despite knowing who was behind it, I stayed professional throughout the investigation. When I confronted my fiancée again, she just stared coldly and sent a cryptic text. "You brought this on yourself." The investigation moved quickly and not in my favor. Despite my clean record, management decided to play it safe and terminated my employment. I'll never forget sitting in my car after that meeting, trying to process how my own fiancée could orchestrate something like this. When I got home, her reaction confirmed everything. She seemed almost pleased, suggesting I could now look for a more balanced job, one that doesn't overshadow my career. The entitlement in her voice made my blood boil. That's when I knew it was over. But she wasn't finished. Thanks to our shared computer setup for wedding planning, I discovered an email she'd sent to my company's general inbox. It was filled with vague accusations about me sharing proprietary information, signed as a concerned team member. Her writing style gave her away immediately. When I confronted her with the evidence, she tried to justify it, claiming some casual shop talk I'd had with a friend over beers was unprofessional. Then she had the audacity to accuse me of violating her privacy by finding the email on our shared computer. I told her to leave my apartment. I still had the lease in my name. Instead of leaving, she threatened to sue me for emotional distress and wasting her time on wedding plans. The absurdity of it all was almost laughable, but I knew I needed to protect myself. I filed a police report for harassment, just in case. My parents offered me a place to stay while I sorted things out. At first, my pride resisted. Moving back home in my 30s felt like defeat. But as my father said, it's not a weakness to remove yourself from a toxic environment. So I packed up and left, working with my landlord to terminate the lease early. The job hunt began immediately. I updated my resume, reached out to contacts, and tried to stay positive. My reputation in the industry was solid, and people who knew me understood something wasn't right about my sudden departure. 2 weeks after leaving the apartment, a friend tipped me off about a position at a growing tech startup. The irony? It paid even better than my previous job. After 3 rounds of interviews, including one where I had to explain my termination, they offered me the position. The relief was overwhelming. But my ex-fiancée wasn't done. She tried to contact my new employer with more false allegations, but I'd warned them about potential false complaints. Their HR manager forwarded me her email and dismissed it completely. Finally, I felt like I was regaining control. The startup turned out to be exactly what I needed. The team was small, energetic, and appreciated my contributions from day one. The CEO even took me to lunch to discuss my vision for the role. Things were looking up. We sent my ex a cease and desist letter through my lawyer, warning her to stop the harassment. She responded with a late-night phone call, threatening that she wasn't finished. She posted fake reviews about me on industry forums, spread rumors that I cheated on her, which was completely false, and seemed determined to destroy my reputation. Then karma struck. She lost her job when her company discovered she'd been using their resources to harass me. She'd left a digital trail that led right back to her, and then made things worse by trying to blame a coworker. They fired her immediately. A week later, she texted me, suddenly apologetic and claiming she'd acted out of insecurity. She even suggested we could still get married if we worked through our issues. I simply responded that any further contact would be considered harassment and my lawyer would be notified. The startup continued to thrive, and soon we were in acquisition talks with a larger tech company. Meanwhile, my ex-fiancée left town, having lost not just her job, but also her credibility and friends once people learned what she'd done. The acquisition went through, and I was offered a leadership role in a new department with a substantial raise. My father, who'd watched the whole ordeal unfold, simply said, "It's good to see you come out on top. You put in the work and stood your ground." Looking back, Hitting rock bottom forced me to rediscover my self-worth and pushed me toward opportunities one might never have pursued otherwise. While my ex's actions were inexcusable, they ultimately freed me from what would have been a toxic marriage and led me to a better place, both personally and professionally. Sometimes people show their true colors at the worst possible moments, but that can save us from an even worse fate down the road. My ex faced the consequences of her actions, and I emerged stronger than ever, with a career that exceeded my expectations and a newfound appreciation for genuine relationships built on trust and mutual support. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them, so please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one.